Welcome to our Chapter 2 test review. As we go through this, make sure you're writing things down so that you can show Mr. Pullinger or myself that you did do the review so that you don't have to do it again with us on Monday. If you're watching it as extra practice, then obviously you do not have to write anything down. But those of you that are using it as your podcast so that you can continue to work on your homework on Monday, make sure you are writing these notes down. So we're going to start off pretty easy. We're going to write an integer for each situation. And remember, an integer is all whole numbers and its opposites. So 12 degrees below 0. Now below here is going to be our key word. And if it's below 0, that means it is under 0. So it's going to be negative 12. Okay, if you want to put your degree signs on there, you're more than welcome to do that. 25 feet above sea level. Now remember, sea level is at our 0. So if it's above sea level, it's going to be positive. It's going to be a positive 25. Okay, now we're evaluating. Now if you remember, these are our absolute value signs. An absolute value means the distance a number is from 0. Okay, now a distance we talked about could never be negative. Can't run negative 12 miles. Okay, so the absolute value of negative 12 is 12 because it is 12 spaces away from 0 on a number line. The absolute value of 9 is 9. And then I'm just going to add them together. So 12 plus 9 is 21, and that's my solution. Okay, so remember, absolute value is the distance the number is from 0. Okay, whenever you're explaining absolute value, that should be part of it as well. Talking about what absolute value is and what you know about it, and therefore from what you know about it, okay, telling me how you get your answers. Okay, so we have less than, greater than, or equal to. If you recall on a number line, as your numbers move further away from 0, okay, they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller. All right, so what's furthest from 0? Negative 21, I'm sorry, as they're negative, moving further away from 0, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. So what is further from 0, negative 21 or negative 22? Well, negative 22 is going to be my smaller number, so I'm going to use a greater than sign. Okay, for the next one we're looking at, we have a negative number and we have a 0. Now remember, 0 is neutral. So it's not positive or negative, but we know 0 lies before my negative numbers. Okay, so this is going to be a less than sign. My 0 is going to be greater than my negative 14. If you ever get stuck on these, feel free to draw a number line. And the number furthest to the right is going to be the largest number. The number furthest to the left would be the smallest. Now we're going to order the numbers from least to greatest. And on your test, pay attention to whether you're ordering from least to greatest or greatest to least. Okay, so I'm going to start with my negative numbers because I know that they are the smallest. My negative number furthest from 0 will be the smallest number, so that would be negative 12. Then negative 7. Then negative 3. The next numbers I have are 0, 2, and 6, and these should be the easier ones. These are my positive numbers, or getting to the positive numbers, as I include that 0, which separates the positive from the negative, then 2, and then my 6. Okay, something that would be smart to do would be to count the numbers that you listed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and make sure it's the same numbers in my original list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, just to make sure you're including all parts. Next, we're going to name the ordered pair for each point and then name the quadrant. Okay, so for point A, remember you're always starting at the origin. I'm going to count over, because your ordered pair is x, then y, and this is my x-axis and my y-axis. Okay, I'm going to count over 1 and 2, and then I'm going to go up 1 and 2. So my ordered pair is 2, 2, and if you remember, this is in quadrant 1. For point B, once again, I'm starting at the origin. This time I have to go to the left. Now a left move is a negative move. So I'm going over negative 1, and then up, which is positive, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. and that is in quadrant 2. Point C, I'm going to the left, which is negative 1, 2, 3 spaces. That's negative 3. And then I don't go up or down. So I remain on the x-axis, and my y is 0, meaning there is no quadrant, or I could say x-axis. Okay, and my last one, point D. So I'm going to go to the right, which is positive 1, and then down 1, 2, and 3, which is negative. And that is in quadrant 4. So your quadrants, if you recall, are 1, 2, 3, and 4. So make sure we're brushing up on that before we take our test. Okay. Now I'm going to evaluate. Okay, and if you remember our rules that we have for evaluating, I have a positive and a negative number. So when they are different signs, it's like subtraction. So I'm going to take 12 minus 3, which is 9. And now if you figure out, okay, now I'm looking at my numbers and I have a positive and a negative. Which one is furthest from 0? Well, it's the 12. So my answer would be a positive 9. Okay, so different signs you subtract and take the sign of the larger, the number that's furthest from 0. If they are the same sign, you add. So no subtraction, you add, and then keep that sign. Negative 6 minus a negative 9. Now for subtraction, you change it to adding the opposite, or we say what we call add a line and change the sign. Okay, so this will become negative 6 plus a positive 9. Now same rules last time. I have a negative and a positive, so I'm going to subtract. 9 minus 6 is 3. The number furthest from 0 is the 9, so it's going to be a positive 3. Multiplication. So 4 times negative 5. Now your rules for multiplication is if I'm taking a negative times a negative, it's going to equal positive. And if I'm taking opposite signs, one positive and one negative, it's going to be negative. So I know my answer here, since it's a positive and a negative, will be negative. And then normal multiplication, 4 times 5 is 20. Now I have division. Okay, and the rules for division are the same as they are for multiplication. So a negative divided by a negative would be a positive. Okay, and a negative or positive divided by a positive, so as long as the signs are different, would be negative, just like for multiplication. Okay, so I know my answer here is going to be positive because it's a negative and a negative. 120 divided by 12 is positive 10. Okay, now I have negative 14 plus negative 6. Since my signs are the same, it's like addition, and I keep the sign. So 14 plus 6 is 20, and it's going to be negative 20 because both the signs are the same. If you remember from our chips, I'm going to have all of these negative chips, and what cancels out negative? Well, positive ones. If I don't have any positive chips, then I have nothing to cancel that out, so it's going to be a negative answer. I have another subtraction problem, so remember we're going to change it to adding the opposite. So the first number stays the same. Subtraction to addition. Opposite of 5 is negative 5. Okay, now my signs are the same, so it's going to stay negative. And since they're the same, I'm going to add. So 12 plus 5 is 17. My answer is negative 17. Okay, now once again, I want you to look at this. First number stays the same. Subtraction to addition. The second number changes to the opposite, so I'm putting whatever the sign is on there, I'm changing it to the opposite sign. So since it's a positive 5, it's going to be a negative 5. Okay, multiplication again. So I have a negative times a negative, which is a positive. And 6 times 9 is 54. So it's a positive 54. Okay, same signs. It's going to be positive. Now I have a negative 12 divided by a 4. So I have a negative divided by a positive. And if you remember, opposite signs mean it will be negative as my answer. 4 goes into 12 3 times. My answer is negative 3. Okay, for this last part here, we are going to have to plug in A, B, and C into my problem and then solve it. So when I have A, B, that means A times B, so it's going to be a multiplication problem. And A is -2, so I'm going to write -2 times B, which is 3. Okay, so I have opposite signs, a negative and a positive, and we know from our rules, if I have opposite signs, the answer will be negative. And 2 times 3 is 6, so my answer is -6. Okay, now I have A minus 6. Now let's look back. A is -2, so I'm going to rewrite my problem here as -2 minus 6. Well, we know we cannot keep it like this because it is subtraction. And subtraction I need to change to an addition problem. So I have -2 plus subtraction to addition. The positive 6 will turn to a -6. Change it to its opposite. Okay? A negative plus a negative will be a negative. And 2 plus 6 is 8. So the answer is -8. Knowing those addition, subtraction, multiplication, division rules are going to be the most important part, okay, for this test. And understanding why a negative plus a negative is going to be important as well. So make sure you understand the purpose, not just the rule, but why that is the way it is. Okay, and here's our last one. B, C plus A. So we need to go back. B is 3, C is -4, A is -2. So this means B times C plus A. Okay, and I already forgot my numbers here. Okay. So I have 3 times -4 plus -2. Now this is order of operations, guys. So even though they're integers, we still follow the order of operations. So I have multiplication and addition, and according to the order of operations, we do multiplication first. So 3 times -4, I have a positive times a negative, so it's going to be negative, and 3 times 4 is 12. Bring down my plus -2. And now I have a negative plus a negative, so I know my answer will be negative, and I know it will be negative because I'm going to have all those negative chips, and nothing's going to cancel out. I don't have any addition chips to cancel it out, or positive chips. 12 plus 2 is 14, and my answer is -14. Okay? Now I know you get to use your notes on the test, but I'm going to encourage you to make sure that you are reading over all the rules, making sure you understand how to apply those rules. Okay, it's always helpful to read over your notes before you actually begin to use them. You're going to be able to find things faster. It's just going to be overall more helpful to you if you understand what your notes say before you try to use them to apply to your test. Okay? So hopefully this helped you today. As always, if you have questions, make sure you ask Mr. Kohlinger or I tomorrow. Thanks for watching.